Lynch, George Lynch. We have George Lynch on the phone. Is that right, George Lynch?
That's right.
Formerly of Dokken. Is that right?
Yes. It's George Lynch and Zoran Theodorovic.
Theodorovic.
Oh, they spelled it wrong here. So
did they?
And this is Kubu?
Pardon me?
KUBU?
KUBU, MetalgodZradiO on KUBU 96.5 FM out of Sacramento, California. Are you
from Sac? I'm from that area too.
Oh, you're originally from up here in Northern California?
I lived there off and on for lots of years. Yeah. The first band, one of the first early bands I had was called The Boys, and we were a Sacramento band. And I lived in Auburn, and we were all kind of scattered along that 80s Interstate 80 corridor there.
All right. Do you remember what some of the venues were called back then? Was it the Oasis Ballroom or?
Oh yeah, we played the Oasis. Yeah, remember that.
Nice.
We didn't play a whole lot of gigs. We played more like played down by the river. It'd be like just it was a little freer back then. It was just like it was like you kind of set up and play anywhere. We play house parties and stuff. We played some high school dances and things like that.
When did you move to LA?
Well, I've been back and forth all my life. I've been in Arizona, Washington State, Connecticut, Northern California, Southern California. It's bouncing back. I always seem to come back to Southern California.
Do you hit the beaches? Do you take advantage of your surroundings?
Oh, absolutely. Big outdoor guy. Do a lot of camping, hiking, backpacking. I'm in the water. We're surfing and mountain biking and road tripping, overlanding, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we're always out. And Southern California is good for that. You're close to the beach, you're close to the desert. I'm a desert guy. I love the desert, and so we're out of Joshua Tree a lot, and out in the Mojave, and up in Owens Valley, 395. And then you're not too far from. The whole Southwest to me, I'm just in love with. Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, all that.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to live in such beautiful surroundings.
Really are, yeah. We were just. My wife and I were just up in your neck of the woods. We went up to Humboldt, but we took the Coast Highway, and then we came back down through the Cascades and Shasta, and then down 395. So just did a big old loop in about a week, and we camp out every night. We don't really associate with anyone. We bring our own food and. Shower, go to the bathroom. I have a 4-wheel drive solar adventure vehicle, so we're self-contained. And,
have you had run-ins with any bears at any point?
No, I keep looking for damn bears, and all I've ever seen is the signs on the side of the road, but I never see the actual bears.
Have you ever, by any chance, hit a deer?
I have.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was playing with some guys, and I was up in Citrus Heights, and I was coming down near Folsom, and I was coming down at night from Folsom, and a deer ran out in front of me. And then what they typically do sometimes, and you probably know this, is they'll come out on the road, and then they'll leave, and then they'll come back and jump in front of your car. And then they freeze in the headlights, and I had no way of avoiding it. Without getting myself sideways or something and getting in being a victim. So,
was the animal killed and extensive damage to the vehicle?
Extensive damage to the vehicle, and the animal. I hit it square and went off the road quite a distance. I wasn't able to find it. So I assumed it was killed, yeah, because I was going fast. I had a big, heavy SUV.
That's a sad thing. I once ran over a dog. I was driving a big box truck, and it just came out of nowhere. And then when I realized where it was under the vehicle, and then the back tire ran it over, and it was traumatizing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sick feeling, but it's I mean, I'm a big advocate for the environment and wildlife and public land preservation and so forth. And one of the things that's really disheartening is when we spend a lot of time on the road and you just see so much roadkill. We were just through Texas, and I couldn't believe. I mean, literally every 90 seconds, I saw a dead deer on the side of the road. And I was just like, this is insane. And everybody has cow catchers on the front of their pickup trucks, and because it's just part of life out there is running into them. But I think at some point, we need to figure out a way to be part of the rest of the world rather than just, it's just all about us. We need to learn to accommodate other forms of life, because if nothing else, just for the selfish reason of it's healthier for us to do that. So, but today I think was a very, I just don't think, I know it was just a transformational day for us, as a country and for the whole world. So hopefully better things will be happening.
I was just about to say, speaking of healthier for us and going in a more positive direction, waking up this morning and seeing the back end of the former president heading up the stairs in his last taxpayer-funded flight.
Have a good life was his last words. Have a nice life or have a good life?
Something like that.
Yeah. Paraphrasing, but it was pretty lame.
We will.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, you couldn't lower the bar any further, could you? I mean, it was just we came out of some darkness there, and it was just, there was a point in my life where there was so much hopeful change happening, in the late 60s, in the early 70s, where the prospects were that, it was going to be transformational change that was going to be along the lines of, what common sense would dictate is progressive and good for the most people most of the time. And, and my personal favorite human being as a president in my lifetime was Jimmy Carter. And I thought, he was just the most transparently honest and intelligent individual that we've had in that office in my lifetime. And what we've seen since then has been nothing but just harsh and darkness and disappointment and just walking away from that light, and it was very heartening today to see some of those progressive ideals kind of be, spoken by Biden and Kamala and his administration and what they plan to achieve and very quickly, because it's important that they act quickly because we've got some, really huge challenges that have been ignored for the last, couple decades.
Yeah, after 4 years of Donald Trump, can you look back at fondness with Ronald Reagan and all?
No, I have to really. I don't want to make any enemies here, but I just, Ronald Reagan was. You have to really separate his persona from,
policies.
His policies, yeah. And the policies were abhorrent, and I think really started that whole shift that George Bush and others have just built upon. Both Bushes and other conservative right-wing people, and now we have the Republican Party that we have today, and that you can draw a direct line to Reagan. A continuity that is kind of unbroken.
Make America great again, right?
Well, right. That's where he got it.
Right.
He just plagiarized that, and so I mean, we have to know our history so that we know how to move forward, intelligently, and understand, and learn from our past. But, when you have people rewriting history, it makes it much more difficult. It clouds our optics. And so I think it's real important that we get back and be, science-based and understanding that there's only one truth, and there is truth. There is a reality and an unreality, and there's a way to deduce that and understand what that is. And we have to all play by the same rules, which are pretty much common sense and just rational thought,
And you have a new record out, is that right?
Well, then there's that too. Yeah.
And it's out on vinyl and CD, is that right?
Yeah, I think everything is now these days. I mean, vinyl's doing really well. So every release, in fact, some releases that we've been doing in recent years, we also put out cassette. There's a market for that.
Absolutely, there's a market for that. Well, good for that. Good for you to have.
I don't think you actually play the cassettes. I think they're just more of a, thing that, it looks cool and sort of a ode to the past. But I don't think people really have cassette players.
Yeah, it goes into the display case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's easier to admire than a CD, which is so thin and small.
Right. I mean, CDs sound great compared to a lot of stuff we're listening to these days. Streaming and stuff. But if you have a good system, a good CD can sound wonderful. Even sometimes better than vinyl, I think, depending, because vinyl sometimes, unless you're getting 200 grain, virgin vinyl and mastered, correctly, and you've got a $25,000 audiophile system.
Right.
Vinyl doesn't always sound that great. I like the idea of vinyl. Sometimes I don't. Reality doesn't really live up to the idea. For sure. Now it's 11 tracks, or 10 and a bonus. Well, there you go. Yeah, however you want to count it. 6 of 1.
And you cover Oasis, Duran Duran, and Martha and the Vandellas.
That's right.
That's definitely from your upbringing. I know I talked to you before a long time ago, and you talked about growing up and listening to doo-wop and that kind of music. It must be nice to revisit that.
That was the idea, and even some of the more contemporary songs. When I say contemporary, I mean songs from 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Still songs that we really like. Like for instance, Jeff and I both talked about this. Neither one of us were Duran Duran fans, but Ordinary World was sort of a standalone kind of song that they did that we loved, and has stood the test of time. And I was like, it's so different than everything else they did. I go, did they even write that? I mean, it's just like, where did that come from? Because it doesn't sound like the same band or the same composer. But regardless, I mean, we just, have lived with that song for years and loved the majesty of it, and so emotional and majestic, and just, so, we pick songs that we either grew up with or that we loved listening to through the ages, as we were growing up.
I know that Van Halen also covered Martha and the Vandellas song. Are you familiar with their version of Dancing in the Streets?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Huge Van Halen fan, of course. And yeah. I know that was sort of a problem song for them, because they were, Alex was really against it, and there were factions of the band that wanted to kind of go in a more poppy route like that and be more accepted by a wider audience and that kind of thing. So it was there was a split in the band. I think that started aggravated the split. But I love everything Van Halen does. So I think, they were a cover band when they started, and I played with them, and I've seen them, in the 70s when they were doing that, and they were phenomenal. and everything they touched, they turned to gold. So they couldn't do any wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Did you ever get a chance to hang out and bond with Eddie Van Halen at all?
Absolutely. I mean, we kind of came up through the ranks together. We're both SoCal bands and played the same bills and same clubs and hung out a little bit and had, common connections and friends and different things and acquaintances. But the time that we spent the most together was on the Monsters of Rock tour, where and Eddie and I would spend a lot of time, in the hotel rooms just jamming and, staying up all night, drinking beers and smoking and playing guitar, So that was a really cool hang.
And was gear a big topic of conversation?
I think so, yeah, because the reason we started hanging out was because a couple of my amps went down, and I didn't bring a lot of stuff on that tour, and he offered to loan me some of his gear for a big chunk of that tour, so I was using his amps, and that's where it started. Yeah, so yeah, we're both tone questing gear files.
And throughout your career, has there been pretty much camaraderie through it all? Because throughout the years, you hear of people having problems playing with other bands, people, control issues and whatnot. I mean, in many cases, the headlining band is always louder than everybody else. But in general, is it a camaraderie type feel amongst bands that are on tour together?
Well, there's some of both. I mean, when Dokken was coming up through the ranks, and we're a support band we opened up for almost every big band that you can think of, and most of the time we were a victim of what you just described. So we sort of grew resentful of that, and we're always trying to figure out how we could still get across, considering all the obstacles and the sandbagging that we were being presented with. So there's a lot of that going on. And it was refreshing to occasionally play with a band that didn't do that. And there was always some form of that, some degree of that happening. It's an inherent part of, when you're opening up. You don't get everything. You don't get all the production. You don't get all the lights. You don't get all the PA. You don't get unlimited sound checks. You don't get the big dressing room. You don't get all kinds of stuff. You don't get a big set. You don't get good set times. You don't get a lot of time on stage. And that's just the way it is. But there are degrees of, varying degrees of how badly you're treated. So, there's all kinds of, I've had all kinds of experiences with that, believe me.
And do former bandmates offer constructive criticism, or is it just ball-breaking pot shots? Well,
Jeff Pilson and I are best friends, obviously. We live right down the street from each other, and we work together all the time. And, we're friends for life and love working together and hanging out. Mick, I've played with Mick the longest. I mean, Mick and I were in bands up in the Sacramento area before we moved to LA to, get discovered and hit the big time, quote unquote. Mick retired, and Mick sold all his drums and quit playing drums, and he doesn't communicate with anybody anymore. Anybody that I know that knows him hasn't spoken to him, including his own brother, because I have another project called The End Machine, and we just did our second record with Jeff Pilson and Robert Mason, and Mick Brown played on the first record and since retired, and so we used his brother Steve Brown, who plays just like him, is younger, and but he rarely talks to Mick either. So Mick just completely dropped off the face of the earth. But heard he's doing well and healthy and looking good, and I'm happy for him. I think he needed to do that. The road was unhealthy, not being kind to him. And then, I'm on good terms with Dokken, with Don, the singer for Dokken. And we speak very occasionally, but, we were touring right after this pandemic together. We were doing Dokken Lynch mob shows, which was working out really well. And then I would go up on stage and play the last, 3 songs with Don. We'd do a little kind of mini reunion thing. And that was really working out well. And so we stayed in touch since then. And so, yeah, I think as we've all gotten older, we've all mellowed out quite a bit.
At what point did you notice the decline in popularity in the Dokken era style of rock, and how did you notice it?
Late 80s, things started changing, and we didn't see the writing on the wall. I didn't. I just assumed everything would be as it was forever, which is really kind of ignorant to think. But then as we got into the 90s, especially the mid 90s and later 90s, it was almost like you couldn't even admit you were a guitar player that played guitar solos, and you'd really dumb it down, and you wouldn't play a lot of solos on records, and it was kind of a really empty era for. I think there was interesting music happening, but there was a whole reevaluation going on, and but that's the way it's a changing of the guard and generational shift, and that's what needs to happen. And it's healthy. It's like creative destruction. So it's selfish to think you can hang on to something forever. And I tend to look at it another way. I was very fortunate that I had a good 10-year run, in the 80s and early 90s, that really solidified my place, whatever place I'm in, for the rest of my life, and I've tried to treat that responsibly and with respect. The fact that I've had that opportunity, good luck. For every guy like me, there's hundreds of thousands of people that didn't. I don't know what the actual number is, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, there's
absolutely, of course,
aspirations that are probably more deserving than me and more capable than me, that for one reason or another didn't get the shot.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. I know that you have more people to talk to. I don't want to hog all your time. I just want to ask you a couple more questions. What's new in the world of instruments, gear, and effects for George Lynch? And are you an avid collector of gear, music, and other related items, records?
Yeah, I'm a big vinyl fan. I've got an old tube stereo and old sort of semi-audiophile system. And of course, obviously, anything guitar related. I don't know if as much as a collector as I'm just, I look at them as beautiful, useful devices where they're beautiful because they're functional and they do a thing, and they have an aesthetic as well, especially the old stuff. So, like I'm sitting here right now in my studio, and I'm looking at just a beautiful pile of amps. I've got a Marshall Bluesbreaker. I've got 3 of them actually. I've got a legendary amp. It's a 1936 Gibson EH-185 I just picked up. That was the amp I believe that Billy Gibbons used on the first couple records. He used other things as well, but this is, when you plug this in, you hear Gibbons, and it's kind of a secret weapon thing. Then behind that, I have a 1956 Fender Deluxe Tweed 5E3 circuit, which is legendary and used on more records than you could imagine. And behind that, I've got a 65 Bassman, which is what Eddie used before he went, used his Music Mans and his Marshalls and went big time. And he sounded amazing with the Bassman. And behind that, I've got a custom-made Diesel Herbert, and next to that, I've got my 6800 watt Plexi, which is about 3 or 4 serial numbers away from Eddie's legendary 100 watt head. Same era, same circuit. And that's just what's sitting right in front of me. So right there, you have so much rock history and so much different options and capabilities, tonally. It's just, I love amps. I'm just a serious amp-file. That's a word.
Well, George, thanks again for your time. Thanks for all the great music that you've played and created over the years, and so much enjoyment that your music has given me. It's an honor to spend this time this afternoon on this wonderful Wednesday. I'm going to let you go, and you have more people to talk to. Is that right?
I'm about a third of the way through. I'll be doing this till 8 o'clock tonight.
Awesome.
And I'm going to try really hard not to repeat myself.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day, my friend, and we'll hope to see you soon.
You too, Zoran. Thank you. Bye.
Ciao.